fixed. Oh, you just said, well, miraculously, I'm going to wake up and everything's going to be perfect. No, you're still going to be a jerk. What you got to listen, you get on your knees and you look up to God and you begin to pray to Him and you pray with everything you got, and God says, you bet I'll fix that. But you know what? In return, you've got to obey me. Go to Scripture. What does Scripture say? Do what my Word says, and then we'll talk. Do what my Word says. We want it fixed without this. We want everything fixed with just a word. We just want to say it and everything be just fine. Man, I tell you what, sometimes I love to walk into my kids' room and say, clean! I mean, clean! And everything just pick up on the shelves like Mary Poppins or something. It doesn't work like that. You know what we got to do? I got to go to my children. Now, if I don't care, listen, I know God can, but let's be real. If I were to go to my knees on the stairs going up my kids' rooms, and I said, God, you just don't know how frustrated I am. You don't know how I want those rooms clean. God, I'm just begging you, Lord, clean the rooms before I get up there. I'm going to get up there and the rooms are going to be dirty. Why? Because He expects me to get them clean. He expects me to clean the room. He expects me to walk up the stairs and get it done. Tell my kids, come on, let's get the room clean. There's just some stuff God says, what are you doing? Why are you even beginning here? You begin in prayer and you pray in prayer, but why are you even starting with it? You just want it done. I just want it done. God, I don't understand why I have this addiction, and God says, I'm going to help you out of this addiction, but you've got to do something in return. Folks, it's not easy to fight addictions sometimes. You've got to physically fight while God is working through you. It's what He set up. Are you a ditch digger? Are we ditch diggers? Are we people who go out there and say, God, you're going to work a miracle in my life, but I know that in the midst of all that, I've got to obey what you say. I've got to do what you say. I've got to be in your word. Folks, without God, no water, and without you, no water. Now, don't you make this sound like I'm putting power in your hands. What I'm saying is, if they hadn't gone out and dug these ditches, God said, well, fine. Starve to death. He told them to dig the ditches. He said, fine. You don't want to live? Then you'll have to die. Folks, these Moabites, they were fighting. Do you know how bad they were? It says later on in those scriptures, there's a few scriptures down, that the Moabites, the king of the Moabites, took his own eldest son up and sacrificed him to the gods because he was so angry about losing. And they were out there fighting and they needed water. God should have just come down there and just handed them all a big gallon of water and they would have all been fine. Even in the midst of this war that was so tough, even in the midst of your financial troubles that are so tough, even in the midst of your marriage troubles that are so tough, even in the midst of all that is so very tough, even in the middle of all that, God's going to expect something out of you. He always does. The people in the Bible, you got the kids. They always, in kids in Bible school and Sunday school, they hear these stories. I remember hearing a story about a little kid who was telling his mom, came home, his mom didn't go to church. He was telling his mom what he learned in Sunday school. He said, Mom, we learned about the Red Sea crossing. And we learned about Moses, and Moses called in the Air Force, and the Air Force was helping them across the sea, and they had built a bridge, and they had bridges they built across the sea, and they were walking across it, and suddenly they found out the tanks were coming after them from the Egyptians, and so they went and they bombed all the tanks, and everything was fine, and she said, that's not the story I've ever heard. Is that what you learned? He said, yeah, if you'd heard the real story, you wouldn't have believed it. What about faith in somebody? What about faith in God? What about when He says He's going to do it, you believe He's going to do it? Not that He might do it, you believe He's going to do it. But then do a gut check. Do a gut check. What am I doing? What am I doing to fix this situation? No, I can't do it alone. No, I'll never do it alone. It'll never be right alone. God's got to do the miracle, but He's expecting me to do something. I can't get along with my brother or sister. I can't get along with them. I say, God, please help us to get along. And then you walk off and you still got the same problem. He says, I've given you everything in my word to fix the problem. And I'll work a miracle. You go to Him and you start working on it. Year after year, you're working on it. And finally, I'll work a miracle for your life. I'll work a miracle in there. Many times we don't even really want the miracle. Many times we don't really want the miracle. We'll say we're praying to fix this. Oh, Lord, I'm praying to fix my finances. This is one of the big things, with me sometimes. And I'm a mess about this. Lord, please fix my finances. But unless I start changing some habits, fix anything. God's going to let me keep getting worse and worse and worse until I change my habits. Then God works a miracle, brings some money through. I'm able to fix it because my habits have changed. My mind has changed. He knows what the deal is, folks. He's asking us to do something. We've got His inspiration. We've got His inspiration. Look, but then we got our preparation and perspiration. Folks, let me give you something. Ideas don't work unless you do. Ideas don't work unless you do. How many times I've gotten on the phone, even with Ryron. Ryron and I get on the phone, we have 1,000 ideas. Man, we'll talk for 2 hours about all the ideas we got. Man, what about this? And what about doing this? Hey, man, what about this? We could do this and what about this? But unless we do something about them, we're going to be 90 years old looking at each other. Hey, what about this? What about a rocking chair with a pillow in it? Folks, it doesn't matter. Your ideas out there, folks, your ideas don't mean anything unless you put them to action. God gives you the ideas. God gives you the inspiration. God gives you all that. God gives you the preparation and preparing it and getting ready. But folks, He expects you to do something. He expects you to get in there and work it hard. Folks, when rebuilding Jerusalem, He expected Nehemiah to get out there and work it. He could have rebuilt Jerusalem like that. Boom, and everything. It would have been up like dominoes, like backwards dominoes. It would have been just standing up. He could have done that. But He told Nehemiah to go in there and take your people with you and rebuild it. You got Noah and the ark. You got the Ark of the Covenant. Think about this. God tells them to build an Ark of the Covenant that He's going to live in. This is God. This is going to be where His Spirit's going to dwell, in the Ark of the Covenant. And He tells them how to build it. He tells them how to build it. He could have just made it and said, hey, carry this around. He says, you build it. You go out there and do it. Elijah at the altar. Folks, what about the woman with the issue of blood? You say, oh, no, that was just a miracle. She didn't have to do anything. Oh, yes, she did. For 12 years she suffered, and then when Jesus came around, she was crawling trying to get to Him. She was busting through people. She was having a fight. If she just sat back and not said anything, Jesus would have walked on by. You say, well, that's not true. Jesus had already walked on by, people. He had already walked on by. And she comes busting through people and fighting through people and finally grabs onto that garment. He feels power coming out of it. Why? Because she had to do something, folks. We always want something for nothing. That's me. I always want something for nothing. And God says, you've got to get out there and do something. My granddad used to tell me, no one's died from drowning in sweat. I used to hate to hear that. He'd say it about every other day. No one died from drowning in sweat. Go out there and do something. Work. Work. You become a champion through work. You become a champion for Christ through work. You go and you say, look, I'm going to do whatever I got to do. If I don't have a job, I'm going to try to find one. I'm going to work to try to find one. If I do have a job, I'm going to do the best of my abilities. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to work with that. The problem is, here's the problem we have, and it's the problem with me most of the time. We got a lot of sermon listeners, but not a lot of sermon doers. Okay, and that's the thing. Listen, my iPod's full of sermons. Well, I'm listening to them, man. So-and-so did a good job on that one. So-and-so did a good job on that one. But I'm not applying it to my life. I'm not doing anything with it. We wonder why these things keep falling apart in our life. We wonder why every time we're doing something, it seems to be worse and worse. God seldom shows up for the lazy. When you see something done, when you see something happening, you can bet there are a lot of people busting their tail. But I don't care if you're in a small church of 100 people. I don't care if you're in a big church of 5,000. I don't care where you are. 20% of the people do all of the work. All of the work. You'll see the same people doing music, and the same people bringing food, and the same people going out and visiting people, same people calling people, the same people. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's the same people. It's like I got a little club walking around saying, man, we're just taking care of all the little babies. 20, and they're all worn out. They're all torn up, worn out, walking around. They're tired. They need a break. Hey, man, I just need some time. They need time to get away. And the next thing you know, they're broken because they need more time than what they took. 20% of the people doing that. Folks, and I love this. Even a mosquito doesn't get a slap on the back until it starts working. Folks, there's no need in walking around thinking you're spiritual because you're in church every week. There's no need in walking around thinking you're super spiritual because you're in a pew every week and because you know how to read, you know every book in the Bible. That's not, listen, what happens is when you start applying all of that to work, when you start applying your life to work, when you start saying, okay, now I got to do something. I know something. Now let me apply the knowledge to my life. Let me go out there and do something with what I know. And when you do that, that's when you're in the will of God. Everybody says, I want to know the will of God for my life. Well, let me tell you how that happens. It happens by getting in the Word. You say, well, I don't know. Well, the problem is we're treating God like a lucky charm. We want to go in here and find a verse specifically for Ryan. Oh, this was for me. This verse was for me, and this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. This was what I was supposed to do. No, friends. You study the Word, and you study hard, and you learn the Word, and you stay in the Word, and you caress the Word, you eat the Word, you chew on the Word, you digest the Word, you regurgitate the Word and chew it again like a cow. I don't care. Look, here's the thing, folks. When you do that, then God starts revealing things to you. God starts revealing where you go next. And it's not always that specific verse that He told you to go out and do that. That was a specific verse He told somebody else in the Bible to do. What He's telling you is you study this and you get in there and you say, okay, now what I know is God is starting to reveal this to me. I feel a tugging on my heart to start doing something like this. And He says, that's right. You've done your part. Let me do my part. You want to know my will for your life? How bad do you want to know my will for your life? How bad do you want to know it? If you want to know it and you're walking around wandering, He'll let you wander. He did it to the Israelites. 3 million Israelites. He walked them around and He fed them. He gave them all they needed for over 40 years. He'll let you wander, and He'll let you wander, and He'll let you wander, and He'll let you wander until you get it right. Until you finally decide, I'm going to do something about it. Folks, there was a general in the European army during World War II, and he was head of the Air Force, and he came into it. It was probably something like this. He came in to get an honor. It was before they even attacked. He came in to get an honor. Everybody was clapping and everything like that. They wanted him to give a speech, and he got up there and he said, let me tell you something, guys. So let me tell you something. I haven't done anything, so I'm not going to say anything. He said, what I hope is when we're done, you're glad we've been here. And he sat down. And everybody cheered for almost 30 minutes. He said, I haven't done anything, so I'm not going to say anything. It's kind of like if you don't vote, you can't complain. It's kind of like if you're not doing anything in the church, why are you the worst complainer in the church? It's kind of like if you don't do anything for God, why are you pointing your finger at God? It's kind of like everything that I've ever found out about myself. He says, I haven't done anything, so I'm not going to say anything. What I hope is when I'm finally gone, you were glad I was here. What I hope is when I'm finally gone, you were glad I was here. Somebody was doing something. When I can look at Travis, I can say, Travis, he's got this dream of the Christian rap, and he's working so very hard on it. Josh Daly's got this same vision with him for the Christian music. Man, I want to see it happen. I want to see it happen. But I can't say a whole lot right now, but when God starts working they're working hard on this stuff. When God finally starts working through it and taking him where He's going, hey, you can get frustrated in what you're doing. You get frustrated in your work. Don't get frustrated. Keep going. Keep working. What if they get frustrated? What if they get frustrated when they're down by 14 points? And what does it say? It says work. What if you get frustrated when things, everybody says, okay, we got our marriage fixed, everything's fine, we're happy, and then 2 or 3 weeks later you get in an argument and you think it's falling apart. Folks, that's all part of it. You're going to do that. You're going to do that. You think it's falling apart. Oh, well, here it goes again. No, friends, that's just part of marriage. You got to get through it. Folks, you got to fight. You got to work for a good marriage. I'm sorry, it's work, and you got to sweat, and it's terrible most of the time. You want good finances, you got to work. You want a good body, you got to work. I just said something really stupid, I guess. Ryron will let me know what I said later. Trust me. He'll let me know what I said later. Yes, I said marriage is terrible most of the time. Oh, you know what? I'm going to make up for that. No joke. Let me tell you a story. I'm going to make up for that. Let me tell you a story. No joke. I've told, guys, I ain't even got long. I'm not even a quarter of the way through. Let me tell y'all a story. I love my wife. No joke. But you know what? You know what I wanted? No joke, guys. No joke. See, y'all gonna think I'm lying, but I've told a bunch of y'all this story. Listen, I was in the bedroom one time. I was in the bedroom. And I love my wife, and I looked up at God and I said, God, you know what I want? I want an unreal kind of love. I said, Lord, I love my wife. I love her. I'll die for my wife. I'll die for her. But I want something a little different. You know what, Lord? I want to be so in love with my wife that I can't live without her. I want it so that when I go to the grocery store, I want my wife with me. That's right. Lord, I want a love for my wife that is so strong.